Evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, March 16th, 2021 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order, and can we all please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I don't have any announcements this evening. I don't know if anyone else does. But we can move right into our first agenda item, which is appoint Council on Aging alternate member to a full member, ducharme, and possible votes. He was appointed as an alternate member on January 21st, 2020 at the request of the committee and the COA director. They're asking that we please appoint John Ducharme as a full member for a term ending June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I would note that the COA board, the email to Suzanne identifies him as James Ducharme.
Well, what do you know?
Well,
Struck by a typo again. All right, so let me change that to James Ducharme.
well, that's, I'm gonna defend Suzanne here. I mean, it's a 50-50 toss-up. Patrice could have messed up, too.
How about this? Let's make it easier.
John and
Make this easier. Mr. Ducharme as a full member for a term ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Yeah.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion other than we need to find someone to blame for the typo? We'll get a committee or a subcommittee on that.
Yes. Hire at least 2 attorneys.
We have 2 on the board. Roll call vote, please.
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morris, aye. Okay, that's done. Next, we have approved the Nexamp project pilot amendment and possible votes.
Mr. Chairman, all solar payment in lieu of tax agreements include an inventory that establishes what is out there and exempt from tax under the pilot, and an appendix that establishes what the entity will pay the town in lieu of taxes. And generally speaking, the value of the inventory drives, to some degree, is related to the payment. The payment is tied more or less directly to the megawatts generated. There's still a factor. The Nexamp field is going to add a battery array for storage of power. That increases the value that's out there. Therefore, the payment to the town will increase by the number noted in the memo, which I believe we're going from it doesn't show the change, but we're going from 7,500 a megawatt hour to 8,250 with a 2.5% inflator. So in year 1, we'll be at
Exhibit B shows the change. of- Okay.
Exhibit B doesn't show the change, it just shows the ending result.
Okay.
It shows the per megawatt difference. So you'd have to do some quick math in your head. $750 times 6.5 megawatts, that's what the change is. But as Rich Bowen notes, more money, that's good. They're not changing a whole lot, except they're putting batteries out there to grab the power so that the intermittent source is more reliable. So,
Did they approach us with this, or did we catch them?
no, they approached us with it.
Well, that says something, doesn't it?
It does. It's good when people are upfront. So the assessor has reviewed the values, and Rich reviewed it for form, and we're all set on from those 2 people.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the Nexamp project pilot amendment.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morse, aye. Okay. Item 3 is to review the amended warrant and possible vote. The changes are in special town meeting, Article 1. It's been removed, increased town clerk wages, added increased tax title expenses, added 20,000 to police wages, added 28,320 to decrease highway administration wage. Added 3 water and sewer articles, 5, 6, and 7. And then on the annual town meeting, added ratify police and fire union contracts, Articles 12 and 13. And the 5, 6, and 7, water and sewer generator, infrastructure improvements, engineering and design, and Phase 1 inflow and infiltration study engineering. They haven't come up with a sum for the water sewer generator?
No, it's being spec'd out. The one that's down there is too big, so they need to spec out what size they're going to buy. But the old one is kaput. It's not a viable option going forward. Article 6 is of particular interest because that would allow the Water Commission to pay for the engineering associated with economic development in that side of town. I really appreciate the Water Commissioners being supportive of the effort to find the funds to do preliminary survey. And you even see the teams out there now, though. One could lose track of all the different entities that are interested in the outcome of this survey as the basis for ongoing engineering going forward. But you've seen Allen Engineering teams out on Gilboa Street this week, if you've traveled that street at all. So there's already been some authorization, I believe, from a private party to do some preliminary milestone markers. But then as we get deeper into this, the survey will be necessary to get the project to the shovel-ready state that is required for Mass Works grants. And that is the goal somehow between now and June. This project that we are going to propose needs to be shovel-ready for purposes of the grant application.
How's the budget process coming along? Are we moving that?
I've got a little bit of a talk ready for you when we get to my report.
Anybody up for a motion on this?
You need one right now? It's just a review.
Yeah. No motion needed.
I don't think so.
All right. Moving on. Anybody have any questions on the warrant before we do?
Not at this time.
Not right now.
Mr. Hughes? No.
No.
Hal, you good?
No. All set.
All right. So we'll move to approve minutes and possible votes.
I'll move that we approve the regular meeting minutes for March 2nd, 2021 Selectmen meeting.
I would second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morse, aye.
And then with the executive session meeting minutes, shouldn't it be titled executive session meeting minutes on the top? But they always had that in the past.
I would say definitely, so that we don't
Because
confuse them.
looking at it, it looks like it's just regular meeting minutes. So I would make a motion that we approve those meeting minutes, executive session meeting minutes for March 2nd, 2021, with making an amendment that the title is changed to executive session meeting minutes.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded.
And then we should retain them as well.
of course. That does raise a question. At some point, we unload a bunch of this stuff. I don't think we've done that in some time.
No, we have.
Have we?
Yep.
Okay.
So I think in the past, I don't know if there's a motion that comes to you or not.
No, I don't believe there is.
There isn't. In the past, the town administrator did a lot of the review. I do some, but I really ask town council to, and we consult back and forth. But I think just last year, he did a release.
Cool.
A lot of these things don't really get released. And if it's ongoing litigation or discussion of parties and their strategy, then
Oh,
it
right.
doesn't come out.
Sure.
All right. Any other discussion on it? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
Davis, aye.
Morse, aye. Brings us to your report and COVID-19 update.
So I'm hoping, oh, now it's gonna,
Echo, echo.
all right. So I won't do that. But you can hear me, right, Hal? Okay. The COVID levels have come up and down. I mean, we at one point were at almost zero in town, and then we had a little bit of a uptick with some local outbreaks in a couple of locations. And now we're simmering along at 8 or 9 cases on a regular daily load basis. The vaccination clinic in Uxbridge has been approved and will begin administering shots on Monday, and they've got the Pfizer dose, so that's going to require 2. However, to get an appointment at the Uxbridge site, you have to go through the state website, the state system. So when the state releases those doses for registration, so we're not getting any priority or any, the people we've already signed up and we've been trying to move them through the queue, they don't get an advance ticket to this performance. They have to sign up at the same time as everybody else. There are now 11 towns cooperating, so we met the threshold for the state's desired level. So right now, we're not really out of the woods. We're just waiting, we're in a holding pattern. 9% of Worcester County has received their second dose and is fully vaccinated. That's not a very high number. So the pattern we've noticed is just when things get low, everybody gets anxious to reopen. We reopen, we have another surge, we close up again. Until we reach herd immunity, that's going to be the pattern that we seem to follow. In your packets, I provided you with notice of an additional deficit spend in the snow and ice account, bringing the total for this snow season of deficit spending to $150,000 above and beyond the original appropriation. So
And more snow Friday.
I saw that.
there's a possibility of snow Friday, but you're not going to jinx us and say that, are you?
I think you said it.
I'm not taking it back.
So the total spend out of the snow and ice account right now rests at $358,100. I don't know that we're going to need to spend, even if it does snow Friday. I don't know I'm pretty sure we have reserves that are in pretty decent shape. And hopefully the asphalt will warm up on Thursday when it's supposed to be 50 degrees and make it a little bit more user-friendly to keep the roads clear. We have been negotiating with our 2 public safety bargaining units. I would say the finish line is in sight. We're starting to draft language for a final document. This has been a very cordial and
Pleasant.
but still progressive conversation. I think we've gotten some important issues addressed. So looking forward to introducing those documents to the board. You'll notice there are placeholders. These two contracts will have to be approved by town meeting, at annual town meeting on May 4th. The rest of our conversation, Capital Improvement Committee has finished its business. They've spent, I'm going to round up to the nearest thousand, it's $639,000 across 3 projects. A truck for building facilities that would be shared with the fire department. It's been, all the lights and paint scheme and everything's been established to make it basically, the person who drives the car is the working foreman at highway is also a call captain. So it acknowledges the dual role that person plays, and it's also a very useful truck. So it's a 1-ton with a plow with a utility bed. So that came in at $65,000, and then the committee is going to request additional funding for the generator in this building. We had originally anticipated a grant, and the grant was going to handle all of our continuity of operations. So generator backup, servers, and necessary software subscriptions to make us pretty strong, resilient. Did not get the grant. We've handled the server purchase and the software on our own out of our budget and engaged that topic. We reapplied for the grant this year for the software piece and got the grant. So with taking all the big expensive hardware out of the grant, we were able to get the funding for the software piece. So we back up here on 2 arrays that we have here physically, and then we back up to the cloud. And we're able to reboot the entire network, not just grab data, but our entire network resides in the cloud. So that piece is taken care of, but the generator is not. We will have to, assuming that town meeting approves the funds, we will do this correctly. We will go out and get a design professional to design the installation and to size the load and all of the safety switches and everything properly, so that when we install the unit, we won't have the problems we've had recently. And then the last project that was approved was to replace the roof here at the Municipal Center, which is a very important part of our stewardship of this building. This is a very good building. It has good bones. It has large, useful spaces. Nice, easy access for those with disabilities, because we have wide hallways, wide doorways, and an elevator that's fully functional, ramps that are already built outside. And it's a good place for the town to manage its operations for many years to come. The problem is the roof leaks over the main structure, and it's a masonry building, so it's only a matter of time before the damage is significant. So the plan is to get us right down to the wood decking, take all the extra layers that have been added on top of each other over the years, get all the way down to the wood decking, build up in those locations where we think we'll be putting air handlers in the future, and then just build the roof around that. So when the air handlers are installed, they'll just be flashed, and the installation will be, more or less trouble-free. So I'm excited. I think the committee worked very hard. They all, in the end, turned in their ratings, and those were the three projects that came in with the highest ratings. There was a proposal to replace a fire engine, the engine tender pumper, I should say, engine 1, which we are able to postpone. We've had to effect some repairs to that vehicle, but we were able to postpone the replacement of that vehicle. And the other items that scored high just didn't score high enough to make the budget cut. So we were hoping the committee would come in, Gene and I were hoping between 700 and 800, and they came in just a little bit below that at 639. So that's an affordable capital budget for the town. It's also a lot of projects. This building here will be very busy. We're busy now, as you all know, cleaning up the fuel spill in the basement, which has turned into quite the mining operation. So they're vacuuming out all the contaminated soil and gravel. And presently Maya is holding a reservation against the potential loss of $400,000. It's going to be substantially more than that. So that's just to get us to this task. But it was determined today that the oil penetrated underneath the pad where the boiler is located, which is going to cause us some difficulty. We have to shore up everything that we're going to dig under and then backfill it properly. So, not to mention, there's an ongoing issue of the replacement of the system. I've communicated to Maya my thoughts that they need to investigate the possibility of subrogating this claim and perhaps filing a claim against the engineer that designed this. I'm not optimistic, though, that that would necessarily produce much money for us, because the investigation seems to be that the contact switch is what has failed on the pump, and that's not an engineering error, that's a mechanical failure on a product that's out of warranty. So this is a true blue, honest-to-God, insurable loss. We'll discuss this in further detail in the budget in a second, but this is going to put us way over 400% of premium in terms of our claims activity for the claims look-back period. We're going to have to do some intelligent engineering around our insurance in order to get to a solution the town can afford. And we may have to drag the finance director kicking and screaming along to do it, but it's quite possible that our best solution might be to accept a very high deductible and to self-insure that with free cash that we hold on hand.
What would be a very high deductible, man?
25,000, 50,000.
Where are we now?
5,000.
5.
That might be the only way we can continue to afford this premium going forward. And we absolutely have to address, pardon me, the risk profile of the town. We're just way too risk accepting. And this is the example of penny wise, pound foolish. You know, all these years of running things without maintenance contracts, without addressing problems as they arise, and waiting for something to break before you fix it is way, way, way more expensive. And you do pay for it. It's not, oh, well, insurance will pay for it. They pay the claim at the moment. They save you the cash flow hit, but you pay for that. You're going to pay for it in premium for the foreseeable future. So that's just something we have to address in the budget. The town filed an expression of interest on the one-stop, so that's the state's website for economic development grants, and a number of grant programs are being unified on the platform in order to be able to accommodate, the fact that so many of them ask for the same information. So once you establish your base information, your applications populate with all the necessary data, and then you're able to fill in the specifics that address that grant. It's a nice format. I think it makes it better for applicants because now you focus all your effort on writing the part that's most persuasive to the reviewers, and rather than chasing all the claptrap. So we got a positive feedback just a couple hours ago from the state about our expression of interest, and they believe we've identified a viable project, and that our application will be viable when we make it. So we're looking forward to that, getting all of the pieces ready for that. E-permitting has gone live. We received our first application for a building permit. It was a nice, easy one, an installation permit, but it went smoothly. Just so people know, it would have been nice to work with Stripe and allow for online payments, seamlessly. The e-permitting software, though, was just a little bit clumsy when it came to mandatory minimum fees and, per value fees. The guys that were coding the software had considerable amount of difficulty making that work. It was easier just to say, you get your application to the finish point, you submit it, and then the clerk will call you and tell you what your fee is, and we'll accept a check or the typical methods of payment. It just made the launch a lot easier and was going to get rid of all the delays. So we're excited about that. So even though we're closed, if you're willing to work something that is frighteningly similar to TurboTax or anything else that you would use in your desktop at home to file a complicated application. Again, if you're a registered contractor in Massachusetts, you enter your contractor number, and a lot of your information is going to self-populate into your application, so it's saving you time. And you don't have to wait for us to be open. You could be at any time of day. It's also a platform for the building commissioner to communicate with people regarding issues and to build a file around inspections. So this is, I think it's finally working out the way we wanted it to. As if all of this isn't enough activity, in 2 weeks, we've been working on the budget, and I'm very close to being ready to share the budget with FinCom and with the Selectmen. I've been attempting to do this through our Microsoft platform that we just migrated to, using the OneDrive and actually a SharePoint. We can't seem to get the permissions right for users that are outside of our network. So we've made several attempts, and right now it's not working. I can form email groups, but I can't share documents. So it's going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to have to email it to you. But just to give you a sense, up on the screen, that I'm sharing my screen on my computer, and there's the format. So it was nice to have a collaboration tool like OneDrive. So I put the budget into the OneDrive, and all my department heads went in, reviewed their requests, and then signed. So as you go through, I can see where we're making progress, and we're almost done finalizing the numbers. So as you know, this budget spreadsheet is organized by the account number assigned in the chart of accounts. I'm going to scroll through. It's going to be a little bit of a lag, so I'm going to go nice and slow so we don't get sick to our stomachs. Under 2022, that's fiscal 2022, you'll notice I took into account your proposal for increasing the selectman stipend as part of the budget. Our expense account isn't very big, $8,800 in the selectman's office. Now, as I work my way through the highlights here, when you get this, it'll be live, and you'll be able to change numbers as you see fit. We have not done a review of the finance director's performance really in a very long time, and it's overdue. And so I anticipate that salary number will be different in my final budget. So it's not quite ready to submit yet until
This year?
for fiscal 22. So I think she's got 2 or 3 years, 2 years left on her contract.
Yeah.
The assessor's salaries for fiscal 22 reflect an overlap, so we're going to hire somebody to replace our existing staff person while that person is still here. We can train that individual. So there's that little bump up to 70,000. But you'll notice in future years, if this goes slide over for me, it goes back down to 62. All right, so there's a little bit of a bump next year. The revaluation, you'll notice I browned out that cell. There's $50,000 in that account typically, but we spend the money out over 3 years because there's usually a trailing bill at the end of the project that comes at the close of the fiscal year or after the close of the fiscal year. Then there's fiscal 23 where most of the work will occur, but we have to obligate this contract in fiscal 22 and make an initial payment. To put that in the operating budget really kind of hamstrings us. That's $50,000 is a lot of money in the Douglastown budget. That's about a quarter of what we raise in new revenues from one year to the next. So my proposal is to put that on special town meeting to fund it out of free cash. Just take it off the budget entirely, and then use a special account that we can roll over from one year to the next and pay the bills as they come in, and to smooth that out and take it out of the budget. Town council staying even. The one remaining department that I need to work with is the management information systems and maintaining all of our subscriptions and everything else at the proper funding levels. So that's an open question right now, exactly what we anticipate. Google was expensive. Microsoft is probably going to be very similar. We don't really need very much hardware, but we do have quite a bit of software running now. So our IMC connectivity between the police department and the fire department is upgraded considerably. We have AmbuPro, which is our case management system and coding system for ambulance runs. All of these things are a little bit more expensive than they may have been 2-3 years ago.
Is that the equivalent of like an EHR?
Yeah. For those watching at home, that's an electronic health record.
Yes.
Economic development, you'll see the addition of the part-time wages for the position that was approved by town meeting in November. Community development, you'll notice a reduction in the salary with the anticipation of hiring a new employee. Here, in building maintenance, Ricky Colinaro, after many, many years of dedicated service to the town, really at this point wants to hang his towel and shoot around and not spend any more time cleaning the buildings for us. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think it's probably going to be our best solution. So down in the expense line items, you'll notice a substantial increase in contractual services. We'll outsource the cleaning of the buildings and the servicing of the bathrooms and other things. It's $1,600 a month, which is a little bit more expensive than the part-time employee, but we don't have to carry any of the obligations we carry with even a part-time employee. So it worked during COVID, and I think it's a good solution for the town. Property insurance, I'm building in a 12% year-over-year premium increase. That's with the hope that by increasing the town's deductible, we can get it to 12%, because I think it's going to be much higher than that in terms of a year-over-year increase. Maya usually tries to work with member municipalities and not punish us too hard in any one given year, but that's a big increase. And if you look back to where we were at the time of the first year of the override, you were at just about 282, 295,000, and now you're talking about a year we're going to spend 490,000. So almost $250,000 increase in just 3 years as a result of all of our claims activity. Police and fire, we're pending the contract negotiation at the moment. They balance out to where we want to go. And I don't think we have a whole lot of major items except for health insurance, and I'll deal with that with a different tab. I'll wait for the screen to change, the computer to catch up.
Matt, while it does that, I like how you allow others to poke around with this, but how do you know that the person that is poking around isn't messing up your cells?
So when I send it to you, it becomes yours, right? That would be the version as of that day.
Okay.
I send it to you. If we can make the OneDrive work, you'll have view access, you won't have edit access. If you want to edit it, if you want to play around with it, I'll send you your own version. You can mess around with it that way. That's the only way to do version control.
If you only give them view access, they can still download it and mess with it natively.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it's not, changes being made on my machine are not impacting.
No, because you don't have edit access. If you did, then you would. So the department heads have edit access. So when they're in here, they're changing the number. So where do we stand right now? 7% year-over-year increase in health insurance. We are thinking the underwriter is going to hand us a 10 or 11 based on our claims activity. But we have substantial reserves in the trust fund. The number one enemy of self-insured funds is being overly political about establishing what you're willing to pay year over year for premiums. So you can't give yourself a 0 because you're just kicking the can down the road to a really significant problem. But if we can keep it under double digits and smooth our way back to reality over the course of 2 years, I think that might be the most prudent thing for the town to do. The 7 is a very aggressive. The consultant's recommending a 5. He thinks that we'll end up at a 7, and he'll smooth the 7 down to a 5 with the town's equity. I believe that decision is firmly with the Board of Selectmen. So when we get to a final proposal, I'll be asking for your review of the situation. And I bumped out a little bit. So whatever we don't pick up in the increase this year becomes the automatic. You know it's going to happen next year. So if it's a 10, and we do a 7 this year, you're leaving 3 to pick up the following year. You just have to remember that that's how the math works. The COLA is in there at 1%. For 2022, I'm holding firm to a 1.5% for the Douglas Public School System. I think that's what the situation warrants. I know that might put them in some difficulty. I would encourage everybody reviewing their budget status to review all of their trust funds and their carryover accounts, and to make your decision based not only on what they're asking for from the general fund, but all the resources that they may have available to them from funds that they have. So they had a lean year where they weren't that busy, right? So after they did all their reclassifications in the last couple of weeks of the fiscal year and put all the expenses into the general fund, how much of circuit breaker and school choice in do they actually tap into and use? I think you'll find the balances there are pretty healthy. BVT came in at 11.122% increase, largely driven by an increase in student population to 122 enrolled students. So that puts a big damper on our budget expectations. So right now in fiscal '22, my bottom line, when it catches up, I currently have, oh boy, that's slow. Hurry up. $71,537 in the black at this point. So what's left to contemplate? I still have my longevity proposal for non-union town employees that costed out at $15,000 even. And above and beyond that, I actually think we should park some of these funds probably in property and casualty insurance line, and hope that we come in and close it out to free cash at the end of the year. Because I see that as just being a necessary way to accomplish that. So that's all I have for that item. Are there any questions? I'll be sharing these documents with you tomorrow.
Will we hear from department heads? I mean, I don't know if we have to hear every year, but I feel a little disconnected from them over the past year and a couple budget cycles.
Yeah.
At least if them coming forward, they can tell us problems that they're overcoming.
I think you should. I mean, I think it's good for the public record. You know, once I submit it to you, it becomes your budget, right? So you forward it on to the finance committee as your budget. I think the department heads and I have worked very closely on this, so I don't think there's any really difficult conversations to have with everybody. It's, really data-driven stuff. But yeah, I would request that you have a special meeting, since March is a 5 Tuesday month, and contemplate, your schedule. I know that FinCom really wants to, dig into this in the first couple weeks of April so that they can hit their timelines for a May town meeting. So we're a little bit compressed, but that's the way it is every year. We just got a lot of this data in the last week, so.
I have a question.
Sure.
Any thoughts as to what might filter to the town on the $1.9 trillion from the state or directly from the Fed? How that impact the budget?
I really don't know how it's going to affect us. I know that I've heard a report that the state will get its allocation, and they are working on an allocation rule for the municipalities. I suspect, Hal, it's going to look a lot like the allocation formula they used for CARES Act. I don't know why it would be any different, unless they wanted to really target some of the urban areas, but I think there's only so much room to do that. The last report I gave you, I think I gave you a number I'd heard on the radio. I think Massachusetts is getting something like $2 billion for the municipalities. So whatever our share, $2 billion will be, Hal. What we'll be able to use it for, how they want us to account for it, there's been no guidance issued.
I think you're right. It'll probably be a CARES Act style model.
Yep. But I think it might end up having some targeting requirements around economic development or infrastructure or it's going to be tied to recovery, not necessarily to just fill budget holes.
Can use some of that for our programs that we're going forward with, I think. Could be a nice tie-in.
I don't see any issues with adding another meeting this month. Anybody have any scheduling conflicts that would prevent it from happening?
What is going on?
So we'll just add another Tuesday meeting and move forward with it.
So that would be,
The 30th?
Yeah.
yes, I would go back to, that's fine. Yeah, I'm good.
And I would ask that that meeting, the only agenda item that we would have on that would be the
The
budget.
budget, nothing else.
Yeah. That works for me.
And in department heads.
Yeah, well, so we'll ask them all to come.
Oh,
Well, that's easier, because that way, if you have any question at all, if you want to signal which department head, you don't have to tell me what your question is, but if you can tell me, make sure to have certain people there, then if they can't be here physically, we'll get them on the video conference if we have to.
It would just make sense to have them all prepped and available.
Yeah, I told them all that they would probably have to do that.
Okay.
good.
Do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Anybody have any open session topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance of this meeting? Seeing as none?
Oh, hold on 1 second.
Oh,
I remember emailing myself, and I was going to send it on like 6 o'clock. Because I knew I wasn't going to remember.
And you did.
You sound remarkably like me.
Yeah, and it, honestly, I'm sorry, it didn't show up. I don't have anything.
if the email does show up, we'll make sure
was-
that it's an agenda item for the next meeting.
It'll come to me, and it annoys me. It won't be next meeting because we're only talking budget, but it was good. I thought, enough to the point where I would actually email myself about it. I'll have to look into it.
I know what it was. He wanted to point out that the Georgetown Hoyas won the Big East Conference. That's what you wanted to talk about.
No, well-
Being ranked last and running the table and beating both Villanova and Creighton. That's what you wanted to say.
We could talk about that. Nothing about it. Well, congratulations, that's good. Are we going into executive session?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we move into executive session for the purpose of collective bargaining and litigation, and then to leave that executive session for the purpose of returning home to our loved ones.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Hughes, aye.
Bone and I.
Cortez, aye.
So,
Morris, aye.